Hello and welcome to Talk Spooky to Me, the Ghost Story Guys mail show. I'm Brennan Storr.
I'm Paul Bestall.
And this is our opportunity to hear from you, our listeners. Paul, my friend, how are you doing?
Super duper. I'm trying to fit in as much as I possibly can before the 14th of June, where I will only fit in football and beer. And we've got an election during it as well. So it's going to be as I've said to everybody today at work, I cannot believe England are going to win the European Championships and we're going to have a Labour government. I'm going to be drunk for a year. Crazy, man.
Oh, let's hope you're not jinxing it by talking about it.
Well, it hasn't affected us winning anything in the last 40 years, so why should it now?
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. No, I've had a nice week. I made my first visit to the home of the Brontes on Friday, which was amazing to wander around their former home and have a look into the lives of one of the most iconic literary families in British history. It was wonderful.
Very cool. Yeah, you were describing that to me off air. That sounded like quite the adventure.
Yeah, it was great. Beautiful place. Lots of wonderful shops. I could have spent a fortune and ruined the car's suspension by the amount of books I could have purchased. I'm always a sucker for beautiful special edition hardback copies of books I already own. But I resisted the temptation and settled for a book on cults and a Myths of Britain book.
Oh, very nice.
So, yeah, a couple of really good interviews coming up with one returning guest and one new to the show, covering two separate states in the US as well, because I like to keep busy. And that's been about it. How about you, young man?
I have been busy with work, picking away at stuff behind the scenes. Obviously, we're going to be moving platforms here soon. So I've been getting the paperwork in order for that. We're going to be switching over to a network called Realm FM. So we're going to be moving over there probably within very soon. No, probably not by the time this episode comes out, but by the time the one after that comes out, we should be in our new home. So I've been taking care of that. Also been getting us set up on YouTube. So,
Ooh.
Yeah. So now if anyone who listens to our show on YouTube wants to become part of our community, so get the bonus shows, become part of the monthly live shows that you and I do, or join Ghost Force, they can now do that through YouTube. So the pricing is all the same as it is for Patreon. So if you're a regular listener on YouTube, I know we've got a nice little community over there. You can now subscribe and help support the show. And you can do all of that through our YouTube channel, which you will find linked in the show notes. So yeah, I've really just been doing a lot of stuff like that. Oh, and we have a new mailbox. For years, obviously, we've been headquartered in Victoria. I think it was the first year of the show, I went and got a mailbox at the UPS store downtown. But since I'm in London for the foreseeable future, and since I'm already at this co-working space nearby, which offers mailboxes, it didn't make sense to keep paying for the box in Victoria. So we are now headquartered in St. Thomas, Ontario, which is about a 30 minutes drive from where I am. I'm usually there a couple times a week. And yeah, if folks want to send us cards, letters, any goodies, stuff like that, which people have done in the past and we're always deeply grateful for, you can send that to our new mailing address, which will be in the show notes. I won't bother reading it out here because that would be pointless, but you can find it in the show notes. The one caution I will give you, if you want to send us a physical thing that's bigger than a letter, please do not send it via courier. Send it via U.S. Postal Service or whoever your local postal carrier is. If you send things to Canada via a courier, it has to be assessed by what they call a broker, and we pay an enormous amount of fees. I know one of our listeners sent me a beautiful quilt, and it was hit with $90 worth of additional fees at the border. So just to be aware, mark it as a gift, lowball the value, and not to put too fine a point on it, but lowball the value, and send it via U.S. Postal Service or whoever your regional carrier happens to be. So yeah, that really has been it. Today I was down at the co-working space for a little bit doing some writing, and then I went for a walk on the lovely elevated park in St. Thomas. They've converted what I think was an old railway bridge.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, into an elevated park that kind of spans the highway. It's really beautiful. I love going up there. And it's only about a 20-minute walk from this co-working space. So yeah, I just like to go up there and kind of watch the world go by. It's a really nice spot.
And it gives you an idea of what places like that would look like after zombies have taken over the world.
You are not wrong. You are not wrong. And frankly, it's a better world. If the zombies could be persuaded to take over, which is doubtful, it is unlikely they would do worse than the present administration.
Yes, absolutely.
But I tell you, Paul, while I was up there on that lovely train bridge in St. Thomas, Ontario, I was thinking, man, I am looking forward to reading some of these emails.
Our courteous and efficient staff is on call 24 hours a day to serve all your supernatural elimination needs.
We're ready to believe you.
All right, so first up, we have a pair of comments from Instagram, and I do love sharing these just because it is of my favorite variety, which is I came for the memes and then realized, oh shit, there's a podcast too. Amy says, I came for the spooky stories, I stayed for the Instagram memes, but I was completely slayed by the show this week in the absolute best way. Thank you for sharing your own struggles with mental health, your acceptance of all folk, and your compassion for those of us who vibe differently. You said, it's not like we save lives or anything, but oh my friend, I'm sure that you do. Keep up the magnificence. And Amy, thank you very, very much. That's very kind. And Brenda similarly says, I started listening to the podcast because of the memes, but now look forward to both the stream of memes and excellent podcast episodes. Thank you, Brenda.
Well, if it's good enough for Reese Witherspoon, why not? Join us.
It is so weird when names like that pop up on the Instagram. We had Will Wheaton was on there. A number of adult entertainers of whom we are, very, very much fans.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, me either. No, not at all. A bunch of German politicians, weirdly.
Best check which party they're from.
Not that one, thankfully.
Good.
But yeah, the Instagram remains the most popular thing we've ever done. I spend hours and hours making these shows, Paul, and I spend half an hour a day on the Instagram, and we have 121,000 followers now, and it just keeps growing. It is the weirdest shit.
You should celebrate by buying yourself a bottle of Mandom.
Paul is referring to an ad I posted recently as a reel, which is an old school 70s era cologne ad with Charles Bronson. And it is for a cologne called Mandem. He is just bathing in that shit. He is slapping it on his back like he's Opus Dei, flagellating himself. It is a sight to behold.
Well, that's the days before deodorant, isn't it? Really, caught on. So they just use cologne, because over here, the big one for us growing up in the 70s was Brute. And the tagline for Brute was, splash it all over. So you just go drench yourself in Brute.
Man, when I watch gangster films from the 70s, there's a whole smell dimension that I'm not considering.
Especially because they're all high on coke. There'd be a lot of sweaty men.
These are the images you come to us for here at the Ghost Story Guys.
Next up, Derek writes, hey guys, I normally just bug Brennan on Instagram when I have something to say about an episode. But sometimes that just doesn't feel like enough space. Brennan, why have you watched the Fall Guy movie 4 times? I've enjoyed it enough to watch it once, and I'll wind up watching it again when it goes back to streaming. But 4 times? Nope. Though if you want to convince someone the movie is good, get them to go back and watch the original series, like I did with the first few episodes leading up to watching the movie. And wow, that show has not aged well. Over the top hokey would be putting it too kindly. Paul, by the way, the version of Joy Division's Dead Souls in the Crow is actually the 9 Inch Nails version. And to be honest, though I love Ian, kind of prefer Trent's version. Movie soundtracks. If we're going to mention The Crow, the second Crow soundtrack is pretty good. It's worth mentioning even though the movie isn't so great. I think using the term there, isn't so great, is probably one of the biggest understatements I've ever heard about anybody describing the sequel to The Crow, Brennan.
He is being as charitable about the second Crow film as he is wrong about The Fall Guy, which I've seen 6 times now, Derek. 6 times.
The only thing I can say in the Crow sequel's benefit is it's better than the Lost Boys sequel.
I don't think they ever made one of those.
They made 2 of them, and they get worse.
No, you're wrong. It's like saying they made a From Dusk Till Dawn sequel. That didn't happen. Never happened. Can't prove it.
Also, if you include them for their gothy importance, you've got to have the Queen of the Damned soundtrack, as it's largely considered core listening for the somewhat younger goth crowd. But personally, my favourite movie soundtrack is actually Hackers. That soundtrack had 3 different versions for that movie. I've only found the third album in a shop once, and honestly, it just seemed to be tracks they'd sampled for background and transition scenes. A couple of left field suggestions, though, are the soundtracks for Tank Girl. What a film! Which is generally fun, and as an 80s kid, Atomic Blonde, which is quite honestly, the soundtrack is the best thing about that movie. We shall be having words. One more you've probably never heard of is a suggestion for the soundtrack Until the End of the World, which is a kind of cyberpunk sci-fi movie I watched during a pretentious art house phase. This movie is remarkably slow, but the music was interesting enough.
Derek, we're going to fight, brother. I'll wait till after the email, but we are in a fight.
Well, he's already prickled my interest here, talking about my Charisse like that. The music was interesting enough for me to seek out the soundtrack, which, when I presented it at the register, it got a hilarious amount of reaction from record snobs who worked there with an incredulous disbelief. The pun. Groan. Lol, I also feel the need to groan loudly and deeply at Apollo G. But what I didn't count on was the guy walking behind me in the dark early this morning in the rain. He literally jumped and yelled, "What the actual hell?" Which made me jump because I had no idea he was behind me with my own "Where the hell did you come from?" We looked at each other sheepishly and then turned to walk in opposite directions without another word. I hope this isn't too long and random. To keep up the good work, guys. I'll eventually get round to sending in some paranormal stories, since I doubt Brennan and I will ever get around to grabbing a coffee, so I can assault him with my years of mess stories of weirdness. Though he does try to find my normal weird stories amusing at least. All the best, Derek.
Yes, Derek's a long-time listener. He's also, when we used to do Weird Together Live, Derek would always come and hang out with us. And Derek, we will get that coffee. I'm going to be in Victoria in September for several weeks, 2 of which are, well, Nick is out of town. She's going on a vacation. I'm going to look after...
Coffee bender, way!
Exactly, yeah, coffee bender. You will be sick of me, my friend. Let's start with Until the End of the World and why you're wrong. It's a Wim Wenders film. There are 2 versions. I first saw the original, the theatrical version, which is 2.5 hours long, when I was in my 20s, so probably my pretentious art house phase too. I fucking loved it. And then I found out that his original cut was 5 hours long, and he started showing it. And there was a bunch of art house showings in New York. And now, by the time this was happening, I had lost all the money I lost in my business, so there's no way I could just go to New York, right? I was broke. But then I found out they were putting it on Criterion Blu-ray, and I bought that motherfucker as soon as it came out, and I try to watch it every year on my birthday. I adore Until the End of the World. It is a magical film. And if you ever read about the production of it, it is crazy. I won't get into it here because not really the point of the show, but I love that movie. It's not for, certainly it's not for everyone. Even in its 2.5 hour version, it's not for everyone. But yeah, there's something about that movie that just hits me right in the feels.
Yes, I have to take a moment just to try and get over those harsh words about Atomic Blonde. Quite how you can't enjoy watching Charlize Theron beat up a variety of men with various implements baffles me. But the soundtrack, I have to say, blew me away and introduced me to several songs I wasn't aware of from that particular era, which is my favourite kind of synthy era of Europop. So, yes, I completely agree. It's a wonderful, wonderful soundtrack. And Tank Girl. You see, we were talking about films which we like, which a lot of people don't. I really liked Tank Girl.
I've never seen it.
I've seen it more than once.
Oh, okay.
I was going through a big Laurie Petty phase at the time after Point Break and League of Their Own. This is not a defense because I like the film, even if Ice-T plays a mutant kangaroo.
I think you mean because Ice-T plays a mutant kangaroo.
But yeah, the soundtrack's amazing. Obviously, Bjork's probably the biggest hit off that album, Army of Me, which is one of her big, powerful songs that she did at the mid-90s phase. Portishead's on there as well, and Joan Jett. So yeah, soundtrack-wise, good shouts. Poor choice in films.
The second Fall Guy became available for sale on digital. I bought it. That was a week ago Tuesday, and I've seen it, 2 or 3 times since. I just love it. I don't know. I know we've had a few people write in and say they went to see it after hearing me talk about it, and they really liked it. It does seem to skew more female. It's like they marketed it mostly to men, but all the audience exit data is kind of showing that women seem to be enjoying it more than men. All I know is I love it. I just love it.
Yes, I was thinking that the other day whilst we watched RoboCop, and as I'm regaling Julie with the lines, she thought it was really weird that I could remember quite a lot of the lines in RoboCop, and seemed convinced that I'm a traumatic child, apparently.
I mean, I don't think that's RoboCop's fault, but I don't think she's wrong. I think we all came out of the 80s and 70s pretty fucked up.
But yes, some good soundtrack suggestions there. Well done, Derek.
Yes, thank you, Derek. All right, next up is from Sherry. Sherry says, "Hi, lads. I wanted to let you know that I live in a house that has stairs to the attic. My house is not the least little bit haunted. In fact, the stairs to the attic was one of the features that I loved about the place. It reminded me of the covers of a Nancy Drew mystery book from my childhood. I have taken photos of the stairs that are located behind a door in the closet. I would love to have attached them, but there is no way to send attachments. Thank you for your show. You young men are swell. Sherry." Well, thank you, Sherry. The website, the form on the website doesn't allow for attachments, but if you ever just want to direct email us, ghoststoryguys@gmail.com, send us pictures of your creepy stairs, your non-creepy stairs, your adorable pets. Send us pictures of whatever, not whatever you like, but mostly whatever you like.
Fiona writes regarding our episode, The Tower. "Hello, I just wanted to thank you both for the sensitive handling of the subjects in this episode. It's testament to the decency in both of you as human beings. Thank you, Fiona."
All right, next up comes from Grumpy Toad via the Patreon. And Grumpy Toad says, "Hi, I can't recall which episode you mentioned Train to Busan on. We've mentioned on a bunch of them. I finally watched it. It is amazing." Grumpy Toad says, "Oh my gosh, what a film. I don't think you need subtitles to understand it. It has knocked Dog Soldiers off my favorite top 3 horror films. It now stands at number 1, American Werewolf in London due to childhood trauma, lol. 2, 13 Ghosts. 3, Train to Busan. Keep the recommendations coming." And Grumpy Toad, that is a great top 3. In fact, I think 13 Ghosts is not appreciated enough. I think that was one of the last gasp of really heavily stylized big budget horror in the 90s, where they spent a lot of money on production design and they looked fucking great. Like Event Horizon, in addition to just being a great movie, there's a lot of practical sets in that bitch. That was an expensive movie.
I need to rewatch 13 Ghosts.
We're not a fan at the time?
No.
And neither was I, but it's something that I came to a few years ago, because I was, there used to be a podcast I listened to called Austerion, where these people it was a Jordan Crucchiola, who's a film critic I used to read, and someone else, but they would talk about kind of 2000s horror movies and kind of reevaluate them. And that was one they did, and I watched it after they talked about it. And yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of flaws you can point out, but in terms of the production value, it's pretty stellar. There was there was House of Wax was another one that had really expansive production design. No, I know you like the classic House of Wax.
Whoa, sorry, I thought you were saying something nice about the modern version of House of Wax there. Really weird.
I in fact have a poster on my wall of the modern House of Wax. I when I bought the Scream Factory Blu-ray, I got a poster with it, and I quite like the modern House of Wax.
I think the thing about the 13 Ghosts is the original isn't very good at all.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the House of Wax original, other than Vincent Price, is a bit silly as well, because you can tell it's been made for 3D at that point. Like, you've got that random man with a bat and ball just wanging it at the camera for no reason. You know, all right. In fact, the Tingler, it doesn't work if you're not in a cinema being assaulted by a Tingler, you know?
Yeah.
But I need to give 13 Ghosts another go, because obviously it's got Matthew Lillard and F. Murray Abraham in it, hasn't it? So, yeah, it's very slick and very stylized. And I mean, I'm not a big fan. I've seen Event Horizon once since I saw it in the cinema. I wasn't very impressed.
Oh, I love Event Horizon.
I just thought it was essentially Prince of Darkness in space, and I didn't like Prince of Darkness.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now Mom and Dad are in a fight, kids.
That's when Carpenter began to lose it for me.
Oh, Prince of Darkness is brilliant. You are wrong.
No, I know. I need to rewatch it because I don't understand why I had such a negative response to it, because I love everything apart from the Elvis film, and I'm not a massive fan of Starman. But everything else Carpenter did between 78 and 88, I adore. Catherine writes via Patreon, "The baseball hat inside thing reminds me of this experience in middle school. My social studies teacher, Mr. Hamar, was famous for hating people who wore hats in class. Yes, this was 1993. My older sister decided for April Fool's Day to take advantage of that. Mr. Hamar was teaching his class and asked her to take off her hat. She didn't. 2 minutes later, he snatched the hat off her head and threw it across the room and screamed, "Bloody murder!" Did I mention that my mum has a wig at home in the exact same shade of red as my sister's hair? And it was very easy to pin a wig to a Red Sox hat. I came along 1 year later and Mr. Hammer went white when he realised that I was Claire's younger sister.
That is amazing, Catherine. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, he had that coming because, again, I get, okay, you don't want baseball hats inside. I think for teenagers, who gives a shit? I think the no caps inside thing is a vestige of an older era. But at the same time, if don't touch people. Don't. You just this is that weird thing, and I know there's some people who want to bring this back, where teachers felt like they could discipline kids physically. Don't put your hands on people, man. If you've reached the point where you're hitting or like physically manhandling someone, you've run out of ideas. That's it.
Yeah, my art teacher could kill a man with a blackboard rubber. He was lethal at 30 yards.
God almighty.
I once saw him kill a boy and throw his body over the school wall.
You have been voted off the island.
It was a bit like Battle Royale, to be fair. So
England in the 80s, I believe it.
Yeah, it was amazing. You've never lived till the police shut your school down because they're scared there's going to be a full-scale riot, but we were on a hill, we could see them coming, and we were ready.
Oh, we're fine up here at Dunsinane High School.
I went to school with a lot of resourceful people. It's amazing how quickly a Molotov cocktail can suddenly appear.
What the fuck?
Well, they would not going to come back, are they, if you set them on fire?
I didn't realize you went to school in the movie Centurion.
It was a bit like the Warriors, actually.
Well, I was thinking that too.
Got to remember, our head teacher at high school was called Mr. Myers. It's only apt.
But Michael Myers, he just stabbed a bunch of teenagers. He didn't engage in urban warfare.
Well, it's character building, I suppose.
Well, you are a cool person, so I'm not.
I didn't throw any objects, I would like to say. My nunchucks stayed firmly ensconced inside their holder.
He's only half kidding, folks. He's only half kidding. Good on your sister, Catherine, because like I said, I don't love don't fucking touch people, teachers. And again, I know there's some people who want to bring this back, like, we used to get the strap, and yeah, it was good for us. Like, no, it's not, Granddad. You're a shitty person. So I can tell you right now, it did not make you better. It, in fact, made you worse, because you apparently think violence is a solution to anything.
Anybody advocating violence, especially against children, is delusional and clearly needs help.
Yeah.
Because it's nonsensical. Oh, well, what we need to do is beat things into children. What are you saying?
Yeah, listen to yourself.
What are you saying? Oh, what that child needs is a good beating. What you need is to be removed from your job if you have thoughts like this and not allowed to go online ever again.
You need therapy and a different career. That's what you need.
You weirdo.
100%. So thank you, Catherine. All right, we are going to take a quick break for some ads, and we'll be right back. Next up is from Joel. Joel sent this in via Patreon. This is referencing the joke we made about Danny Robbins being Gozer on the last episode on The Tower. Danny Robbins, of course, the host of BBC's Uncanny podcast, a really great host. Again, we were having fun on that episode. We have a lot of respect for Danny. Danny's been on Paul's show. There is no beef whatsoever between us and Danny Robbins.
What's this we? I keep hearing the word we.
Okay, Paul has beef with Danny Robbins. But no, yeah, I just came up with a dumb joke, kept rolling with it. But Danny is a cool dude. From everything I've heard, he is a good guy. In addition to being Gozer, the Destroyer. What would I choose as the form of the Destructor? Joel says, I'm thinking maybe a hybrid combination of Stay Puft and Brian Blessed. Unleash hell.
Unleash hell!
There you go. I knew Paul would get it. For me, it's hard to beat the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, if I'm honest. Maybe the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. That would be pretty great. Just like a huge city-sized Wienermobile just crashing through New York. That'd be pretty great.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, Charlize Theron.
I had a feeling. You asked, Joel. You asked.
Yeah, it's that Dior advert. That's one of the great things about Christmas in the UK is I get to see Charlize Theron every day for about 7 weeks on telly. It's brilliant.
All right, and just before we move on, a long time ago, one of our Talk Spooky episodes was Bob Ross' Sex Machine, and Paul had kind of sung, we'll say the chorus to a song that could be Bob Ross' Sex Machine. Well, Joel actually wrote the song. We put it out there to listeners. If anyone ever wanted to write that, well, Joel wrote that. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll find a way to share the whole thing at some point. But I do want to share at least a verse from Joel's creation, Bob Ross' Sex Machine. He's Bob, yeah, he's Bob. Oiled up, acrylic gangster. His brush is loaded, now he's coming for ya. He's Bob, yeah, he's Bob. Slaps his brush clean. 50 Shades of Grey, a goddamn sex machine. To all you paint haters that say Bob sucks, I'm Ross the boss, and I don't give a... And you can no doubt complete it from there.
Ducks.
Ducks. So thank you, Joel. That's amazing. And again, the whole thing is brilliant. I got to find a way to share that. Maybe I'll put it on the show notes for this episode at ghoststoryguys.com. But yeah, thank you, Joel. That made my day.
Alana writes with my favourite message of the day. I enjoyed the soundtracks discussion on Talk Spooky. My favourites off the top of my head are High Fidelity, 6 Feet Under, and Amadeus. Brennan, a movie I highly recommend is Michael Winterbottom's 24-Hour Party People, which is the genesis of the Joy Division New Order era, amongst a lot of other Manchester bands that were signed to Factory Records. Actually, that soundtrack is a banger too, and I am positive Paul knows this film. I was going to see Sasquatch Sunset a couple of weeks ago. It was playing at the Westdale in Hamilton. I initially thought it would be fun to bring my 12-year-old daughter until I read about the Sasquatch sex. And then, after hearing your dismal opinion, I decided to skip it altogether. Lol. Thanks, Alana.
That was the right call, Alana. I don't think the movie's bad. You know, it is, again, it's a wholly unique expression of a very particular point of view. It's totally original. There's nothing else out there like it that I'm aware of. I just didn't love it. And it is the wrong thing to bring a 12-year-old to. No. And I have not seen 24-Hour Party People. I've seen a couple Michael Winterbottom movies. I've seen Code 46. I've seen Genoa, but not that one. So, and Paul was giving me finger guns there on camera. So you've seen that, Paul?
It's a film and a soundtrack and a lot of bands that are deeply close to my heart. I did a lot of growing up in Manchester during that phase, and so from being around 15 to 20 I was spending a lot of time following numerous Manchester bands everywhere in my flares and my tie-dye top, with my bucket hat on, somehow being able to dance at 9 hours a night. It was a great time for young people everywhere. Yeah, brilliant. Enjoyed it. And New Order, one of my favoritist bands ever. I adore them.
It goes without saying that your youth was much more interesting than mine.
Well, yes. You know, I'm very, very proud to say I've seen a lot of those bands at the Hacienda, legendary Manchester nightclub, as well, and the Paradise Factory, and happy days. Seen the Stone Roses and the Happy Mondays and the In-Spiral Carpets, and Charlatans and Northside, and even crap like Candy Flip. Interstellar.
If you folks don't know, that laughter Paul just gave us, that is the I have a story but I can't tell it on air sound.
Yeah, they're a bit risque, Candy Flip.
Oh, okay. I am wholly unfamiliar with most of these bands.
Yeah, well, Candy Flip had one big hit here, and it was a dance cover version of Strawberry Fields Forever, done in a kind of sort of sound of the scene of the time, which was kind of lots of hi-hats and rhythms. And basically, it was music designed to be enhanced by listening to it on ecstasy.
I see. Which is funny because we just had someone, it was Amy, comment on YouTube for the episode Death on the Doorstep. One of us referred to X, of course, which is the unfortunate new name for Twitter. And Amy said, when someone says I was on X, I still think it means I was on ecstasy, which is, I mean, that's fair.
Doves, man. It's all about doves. You got some doves. Sort you out.
What is happening right now?
Proper. Doves was one of the early big selling ecstasy tablets of the late 80s.
Okay. There we go. I figured it was something related, but...
Picture of a dove in it, and then everybody got into Mitzi's.
All right.
Which had the Mitsubishi logo on them. You got any Mitzi's? You got some Mitzi's? Speckled Mitzi's. Lovely.
Oh, folks, the stories Paul could tell.
We're in Ibiza, right? And he just got this fire extinguisher out, started shooting police. He'd only been on an hour, he got deported.
Is he making it up?
True story.
You won't know?
True story.
Really?
Yeah. And they all got kites on. 2 of them got kicked off. We'd literally been in Ibiza an hour. And 2 of them basically flying on the plane. So they dropped before we flew. So they came up on the plane.
Oh, no.
So they basically needed carrying through customs near enough. And then they just went mental when we got to the hotel, ran up to the roof with 3 fire extinguishers that they'd nicked and started shooting everybody off the roof. And then, so the police came and they started shooting the police, which isn't advisable when police carry guns, I would suggest. And they were escorted off the premises and taken back to the airport and deported back to the United Kingdom within 3 hours and got the kite on because nobody else had come home with them. We were like, well, we've not done anything wrong. We're not going
This is
home.
on you, you
We're here
idiots.
for a week. Bye. See you in a week.
Amazing.
Come on, let's get to space.
All right. Our next message comes from Janice. Janice says, y'all, how are you going to talk about soundtracks without talking about Good Morning Vietnam, Forrest Gump, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, Top Gun, Blues Brothers, Xanadu. She says, I will hear no judging on this one. And any Quentin Tarantino movie. Love you guys in the show. Keep it spooky and funny. Top choices.
Yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtracks are really good. I won a copy of Awesome Mix Volume 1 on cassette during a Marvel quiz where we won a bumper collection in a pub quiz, unsurprisingly.
You were just winning shit left, right, and center here.
Oh, it was a few years ago then. About 6 years ago that I won that. And we won a massive book and a Hulk key ring.
Sweet.
Kicked ass.
No, I like all of those. I know Forrest Gump was one of the first albums I bought, the Forrest Gump soundtrack. And yeah, Quentin Tarantino always has great soundtracks. I think the first one of those I ever bought myself was Jackie Brown. I think that was the first Tarantino soundtrack I ever bought. And I think I had the soundtrack for Kill Bill Volume 1 as well back in the day.
I had the Pulp Fiction soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. I bought that one later. I didn't own it at the time. But yeah, that's another great one.
Yeah, Good Morning Vietnam's very good. Yeah.
Nope, all fantastic choices. I think it's Janice. If it's Janice, I apologize.
Saturday Night Fever.
Man, that is a movie. We watched that a couple of years ago with some friends. I had never seen it. Nick hadn't seen it in years.
People forget how dark it is.
Yeah, no one remembers that movie. They remember the soundtrack.
And the dancing.
They do not remember the movie. Yeah, that is a dark as fuck movie.
It's a tough watch.
Yeah.
It's strange how it is. It is weird when you ask people about Saturday Night Fever. They go, "Oh yeah, what a great." And you're like, "Hang on, what do you mean? Oh yeah." I don't think you know this film as well as you think you are.
Even now, Nichols, yeah, I'll bring it up and she'll go, "Oh, but the dancing is great." And I'll say, "Well, there's really not that much dancing in the film. There's a couple minutes of dancing, and the rest is just hard urban living in New York."
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you again, Janice or Janice. Again, I apologize if I got it wrong.
Taya writes, I thought about the favourite movie soundtracks question last night, and here's what I've come up with. The Prince Batman soundtrack, of course. I couldn't get it in Canada, but I had a friend who worked in... Do you have an embargo on Prince in Canada? What was going on there? But I had a friend who worked in a music store in North Carolina, and she sent it to me. Dumb and Dumber. I hate the movie, love the soundtrack. Dazed and Confused. It just put a bunch of songs I grew up on and loved in one album. Pulp Fiction, just a fun soundtrack.
It is hard to overstate how difficult it was to buy good music in small town Canada when Taya and I were growing up. I remember I worked in Radio Shack, which was in Revelstoke. That's where you bought music that wasn't, top 40 stuff, because they actually had like a really great music distributor that you could get things from. But it would take weeks to months to get things that were not top 40 releases. One of my favorite records is 666, The Revelation of St. John, I think it's called, by Aphrodite's Child. It's a double record.
Vangelis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it took 6 months to get that. I mean, I could order it on Amazon now and have it here tomorrow. But back then, you threw a message in a bottle, tossed it into the ocean, and just hoped that someone would pick it up.
Is that because you were supposed to listen to Rush and Glass Tiger?
More or less, yeah. I don't know. I honestly have no idea who else was. Again, my family were not musical. My mother had 2 cassettes that I'm aware of. It was Waylon Jennings' Greatest Hits and Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. Those were the 2, when she would take us for drives sometimes at night, those are the 2 albums we had to listen to. And I love them both, but not exactly a broad musical education.
Yeah, Prince Batman soundtrack. Forgot about that one. Brilliant.
I have to admit, I don't like Prince's music that much. I saw him live with Nick and some friends of ours, and it was a great show, and I just thought, this is fine.
What? The fuck is wrong with you, man?
That's a long list, in fairness. It's one of my great shames. I like it. It's fine, but I don't get why everyone's crazy about it.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. Just not for me. The Prince stuff in Batman, I find so cringeworthy. And I did at the time, too. I was like, what the... when Joker is playing it as he's defacing the Gotham Art Gallery, I just remember thinking, what the fuck is this?
I would say his output varied a lot, I'll say. But there are many a Prince song I adore.
All right. So thank you as always, Taya. And we have a quick one from Grace, and then we have one more after that to round out the show. This is one final soundtrack message. Grace says, "Hey, Brennan and Paul, I just finished listening to your most recent talk, Spooky to Me, and wanted to share one of my personal favorite film soundtracks with you. One soundtrack that has haunted me since I was a kid is Michael Lewis's score for the animated version of Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. The film is pretty interesting, somewhat bizarrely but beautifully directed by Bill Melendez of Peanuts fame, but the score is a real showstopper. It relies on fairly succinct orchestral sounds, robust strings, chilling solo flute, with accents of guitar and what to me sounds like synth, lending the film an eerie and melancholy aura that feels strange yet fitting. I once played the whole score while taking a walk through a field on my parents' property when a bank of winter mist had rolled in and I could scarcely see an inch in front of me. It was one of the best walks I've ever taken." So that sounds really cool, Grace, and I will give that a listen. Are you familiar with that one, Paul?
I am indeed, because that was a British television staple throughout the 1980s. I've seen that film more times than I care to remember.
Oh, really?
It was a fabulous version of C.S. Lewis's classic second volume of the 7-book series, as we clarified a long time ago.
I don't know that we did clarify that. I think you just declared yourself the victor.
Well, I was right, so I am.
Of course, yeah, naturally.
But the composer was a music. Well, he's still with us. I think he must be touching 90 now. But he was a musical prodigy. I think he was a church organist by the age of 10.
No kidding.
Phenomenal. From Wales, I think, Aberystwyth.
I'll be damned. Okay, well, I will check that out, Grace.
Great shout, that.
On a totally unrelated note, a soundtrack I've been revisiting recently is this Michael Giacchino's soundtrack for The Batman. For some reason, the Nirvana song "Something in the Way" popped into my head recently, and I'm not really a Nirvana fan.
Are you just saying things to upset me tonight?
I know. I feel terrible.
What are you going to say about Led fucking Zeppelin?
Okay, you're safe there. I like Led Zeppelin. All right, so we have one last message
from Sheffield.
Oh, is he from Sheffield?
Yeah, Dab's the guy who does the Amazing Cryptid t-shirts.
Yes, I just didn't know he was from Sheffield.
He is. He lives around the corner from me.
No kidding. I had no idea he was that close.
Yeah, he's not far away at all.
Oh, that's brilliant. So yes, of course, this is from Dav. Dav is a creator of the brilliant Cryptes.
Absolutely. Recommend highly. Get yourself one, everybody.
Agreed.
Dav writes, if some sort of overlord could tell you definitely that all of your mysteries, be it ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, were real or not, would you want to know? Would you, Brennan?
I feel like if there's an overlord who can give me an answer, then the answer is yes.
And that answer is, it's true, Brennan.
Exactly.
I've seen many sights as my role of the Count Centuryman, and I know that these things are real.
There we go. The answer is yes, Dav. The answer is yes.
Yeah, definitely. Because they are.
I'm most curious about Bigfoot. That's the one I'd want to know. If I had to pick one, like, tell me the truth, I want to know about Bigfoot.
Even I sometimes wake up in a cold sweat and think, nah, it's nonsense. It can't be real. It can't be real. And then I think, could thousands and thousands of people be lying? And the answer is, as with any of these phenomena, it only takes one to be real for it to make it all irrelevant. Doesn't matter. But they certainly don't live on another planet and fly around in UFOs. Okay?
Agree to disagree.
As we've said before, there may be a race of aliens that look like Bigfoot. That is not our Bigfoot. That's Space Bigfoot.
Italians. I get it. I do the same thing sometimes. I'll think like, am I just talking shit? You know? But then I remember the things I've seen and I think, no, I saw what I saw. You know, I don't necessarily understand what it means, but I saw what I saw. And I know people who've also seen things and I trust them. So there's something going, I always tell people, because people will find out I do a ghost show and they'll say, oh, you really believe in all that stuff? And that's when I get super nerdy. Because they'll say, like, what stuff specifically? Ghosts. Yeah, I mean, yes. And then you get into the super nerdy questions about, like, what are ghosts exactly? And of course, then they're like, shut up. I don't want to have this conversation. But, you know, I'll get really granular about it, right? Because it's like, well, what do you mean by ghost? You know? But it boils down to people are seeing something. It's not just hallucinations. It's not just, I mean, there are hallucinations. That's a thing. But yeah, people are seeing something. But I don't pretend to know what it means.
No, I agree. I mean, when I saw that thing in the sky, I've said, I don't know what I saw, but I know what I didn't see. I mean, for all I know, I still think I probably witnessed some really weird meteorological phenomena. Who knows? I mean, we didn't know what sprites were 30 years ago, and now look, you know, we've got these 90-mile wide lightning bolts flying around the atmosphere. What the fuck is going on there? We've got moons in our universe with lakes made of liquid methane. Diamonds raining from the sky.
The universe is a very weird place.
It is, and that's only what we know. We know next to nothing.
And I'm going to finish with a text message I literally just got. I saw it come in as we were chatting.
Is it from the police?
It was. They're coming for you.
Good. I'm ready.
Actually, they're coming for me because they heard me talk shit about Prince.
It's the music police.
Exactly. Now, this is from a friend of mine, and my friend says, I just read the chapter in your book on the triangle lights. It shook a story loose in my head. Last year, we had to drive to a nearby town to get a CT scan for our cat. We had to leave at around 6 a.m., so it was still dark when we left town. I think after going through this other town, which is nearby, we both spotted this thing in the air off in the distance. It looked like a big balloon, but deformed, I guess. It had the long strands hanging down in front of it, almost jellyfish-like. At this point, it was light, but the sun hadn't peeked over the mountains yet. Both my partner and I watched it until the road made a turn and it was gone from our view. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation for it, but it just looks so odd, hanging there in the sky in the distance.
Intriguing. But yes, that's a thought-provoking question, Dav.
Let us know, folks. What do you guys think? Do you if you could find out, would you want to know? And if it was only one thing you could find out about, which one would it be? Send us a message, ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. If you're a patron or Apple Podcast subscriber, comment on the post. Well, Apple Podcast can't do that, but send us an email, ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. Let us know. Would you want to know for sure? And if so, which one phenomenon would you choose if you had to choose?
Bigfoot.
I figured you'd be Bigfoot. I was surprised it was Bigfoot for me, but when I did some soul searching, it was Bigfoot. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Talk Spooky to Me. Thanks, as always, to everyone who wrote in. We love hearing from you guys. Keep those messages coming. Again, ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. We try to pull from everywhere, so we try to pull from YouTube, Spotify, all those places. And keep commenting. Keep commenting on Instagram, Spotify. Spotify, of course, has a Q&A function. YouTube, all those places. We love getting feedback from you guys. Paul, my friend, where can everyone find you online?
You can find Mysteries and Monsters across all social media platforms and podcast sites.
Fabulous. I'm Largely the Truth on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd. You can find my other show, Weird Together, which is a look at the sociology behind the latest and greatest in independent horror films, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, we like to end Talk Spooky with a tune. This time around, we are featuring a release from our own label, Night Harvest Recordings. And this is a track that was brought to us by Peter. Peter, of course, being Peter Kursov of Pizzanta Music, who composed our opening theme. The track is called Just a Memory, from the artist Banri, featuring Elijah. This is a French and Russian co-production, produced by James Cole Pablo. You can find Just a Memory streaming everywhere you get your tunes. Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll be back next week, but until then, we will leave you with Banri featuring Elijah and Just a Memory.
Just a memory is all she'll ever be. Just a memory. Just a memory.
J'ai toujours trempé dans des tristes affaires. Je verrai pas le bout du tunnel, mais nique sa mère. Je veux retrouver le sourire, bien avant commentaire. Rien à foutre de vos gueules, vos putains de commentaires. Lâche le mic pédale, je vais te montrer comment faire. Faut que ça sorte des tripes, sinon à quoi ça sert? Tu t'inventes des vies, t'es complètement du père. C'est que du réel, j'écris pas de romans frère. Je marche seul comme un putain de cow-boy solitaire. Roulant sans interdit avec un faux mi-père. Il est trop tard pour faire marche arrière. Allume un gros joint et baise le commissaire. Ça vient du cœur, c'est comme la violence policière. Je lâcherai pas l'affaire même si je fous ma vie en l'air. Je me fais rare quand les faux MC prolifèrent. Face aux mensonges, j'ai juste envie de me taire. J'suis pas d'ici en fait, je viens d'une autre planète. J'suis prêt à mettre les voiles, j'ai plus grand chose à perdre. Si tu nous causes du tort, nous on cause ta perte. P.A.N.E. Dog, tous les jours on se moque la verte. On aimerait juste profiter de ces chiennes de vie. J'suis pacifiste, même avec mes ennemis. Et s'il y a plus d'amour, je vais parler la haine, tant pis. Je veux qu'on jette mes cendres dans les rues de Paris.
Just a memory. Just a memory.
Страсть угасает, и мир уже не тех размеров. Я помню все, но часто вспоминать не смею. Я так же плох, как и хорош одновременно. Не питая страх временем и не медлю. Поступки часто необоснованные, мысли мимолетные. Знать наперед, бы в какой свернуть поворот. Не повторить того, что было, поможет опыт. Я уйду вслед за ними туда, где холод. Только одиночество пробивает мою бронь. Узнаваемым почеркам дарю тепло от слов. Если даже захочу, ничего не изменю. По тем дням я не тоскую, новыми живу. Пускай меня осудят, я по-другому не могу. В этом мире разбитых судеб по осколкам я собрал свою, потеряв стаю где-то там под небесами.
Just a memory. Just a memory. Just a memory. Just a memory.